The Senate will now come to order. The Pledge of Allegiance will now be led by the Speaker's staff, followed by a moment of silence and reflection.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please stay standing for a moment of reflection. Thank you.
The clerk will call the roll. Please correct the pronunciation of your name if it is incorrect. Baldinger, Bartlett, Venegas, Boswell, Koviak, Cumby, Doppolito, Davis, DiLorenzo, Freer, Fry, Govan, Gay, George, Dopel, Hunter, Jacobson, Keenan, Lewis, Lusry, Middleton, Modica, Moore, Wakapusia, Primus, Ryan, Sams, Sanders, Santiago Cedillo, Sheridan, Zeitler, Spurgeon, Tapia, Talaka, Torres, Violette, Walker, Ward, Wilson, Watley. Has everybody who's proxying said they were here for their proxy? There's a proxy for Senator George, I believe. That's right. Okay. With the quorum being present, is there a motion to approve the Journal of February 11th, 2026 as found online? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now in line for general orders of the Senate, beginning with report from Senate leadership. Speaker Pro Tempore Violette, you are recognized to give a report on the Rules Committee. Senator Jacobson. Granted.
Hello, everyone. Rules met Sunday at 5:30. We discussed 6 pieces of legislation, all of which were found favorable. Unfortunately, I had to step out a little early and designated the wonderful Chairwoman Cumby as interim chair. She did an amazing job. As we creep closer to the end of the term, I just want you all to know that this has been a fire Senate session, but it gets really cold when you reach the peak. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The Speaker Pro Tempore yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Academics Committee. Chairperson Koviak, you are recognized.
Hello, everyone. Okay. I always end up hitting this mic, I swear to God. So we had 3 pieces that were referred to us, all of which were found favorable. There's definitely a lot of discussion on some of them, just with some of the things the school would have to do to make it happen, but we think it's worth it. But when it comes to other matters of discussion, we were just talking about Academics Week things. We have a lot of that stuff coming through soon, so if you guys see anything about signing up for tabling, if you'd like to be there, just don't question it and go along. But with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairperson yields their time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Finance Committee. Chairman Spurgeon, you are recognized.
We met at 3:30 on Friday at our regular time to review the Chapter 3 and Chapter 6 edits and found them favorable. And then we did not review any requests and approved $0 because we did not have anything at our stage this week. I yield questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Health and Safety Committee. Chairwoman Cumby, you are recognized.
Hi, everyone. We met on Sunday this week at 7 p.m. due to me not being here last week. And we had 3 pieces to go over. We found SBL 117, 183, as well as 184 unanimously favorable. And then we found SBL 117, 185 favorable with an amendment. And that amendment just changed the hours in the legislation from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. to 24 hours, just because the committee thought that accessible access to healthcare shouldn't have a time limit. And we discussed with the sponsors and everything. And then we also have a recommendation by Senator Keenan hitting the floor for improving parking here. So super excited for him for that. And then Senator Watley and I surveyed bathroom folks here in Russell House and reached out to Connor Morvay, who's like the head of the Russell House guy, for implementing folks and also potential legislation. And then also we're going to be tabling our parking piece indefinitely because we're in the process of meeting with Brian Favela, who works within parking and transportation, to hopefully talk about maybe decreasing the price of parking, but also just understand the logistics behind that. So the committee is super excited for that, and I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Judiciary Committee. Chairwoman Diapolito, you are recognized.
Hey guys, Judiciary met last Thursday at 3 o'clock to go over SBL 117-182, which was found unanimously favorable with one abstention, and SBL 117-183, which was found unanimously favorable with an amendment and one abstention. And then this week's meeting, we're going to be doing the last chapter for the codes revision, chapter 2. So if anyone has any questions or concerns about that, feel free to reach out to any of us in Judiciary. I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none. We'll now hear a report from the Liberties and Representation Committee. Chairwoman Sams, you are recognized.
Hi everyone, we met on Thursday and found SBL 117-183 unanimously favorable. I'm excited to say our tabling event with the Anne Frank Center went really well. I do want to give a quick thanks to Myron. He was the first person not a part of the tabling to write a postcard, so I really appreciate that. We are able to send out 24 cards, which will go to different refugees across the world. And I also got an email from the Anne Frank Center just telling me that they appreciated having representation in student government, which is really awesome to be able to continue working with those organizations. And with that, I yield to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none. We'll now hear a report from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Chairwoman Loser, you are recognized.
Hi everyone, Powers met Monday at 2:30. We reviewed one piece of legislation, SBL 117-183, and found it unanimously favorable. As for other matters of discussion, we talked about the interview process and kind of having a more anonymous, judging review, so other committee members wouldn't sway other people's opinions, and if that were an online interview, it just went through private messaging, and if it were in person, you just have it through note cards or stuff like that. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Sustainability Committee. Chairwoman Gopal, you are recognized.
Hi everyone, we had our meeting on, this was Thursday, it's Tuesday. We had it yesterday at 5:30. We've reviewed SBL 117-183 and found it favorable. We're going to do a tabling with Fresh Broco with, I think it's on St. Patty's Day for the pot decorating, and then they're going to be giving out succulents, as well as how to be a sustainable student on a Shamrock. I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Student Life Committee. Chairman Sheridan, you are recognized.
Hey guys, Student Life met as we usually do Mondays at 6:30 p.m. in the LSC. We went over 3 pieces of legislation, all of which were found favorable. But I do want to note on there was a pretty lengthy discussion that we had about SBL 187 about the subleasing through the university. So one of the main concerns that got brought up was that the university would basically be managing 2 independent parties, and they'd be running that platform. But over time, we eventually kind of realized that the university is going to be extremely strict on who they let into this platform. It's going to be a much safer area for these students to get their subleasing from. And so some of those worries kind of got mitigated as the committee went on. And so, or two, I'd really love to see a lot of student government support and let all your friends not in student government know that this is like for them as well, and it's for all those students. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We are now in line for a report from the Elections Commission. Commissioner Tristan, you are recognized.
Hello, everyone. Couple of fun updates. So I sent an email out to all the candidates, but we've changed the new spots for tabling. So, for instance, most of it was on Green Street in Preston, but for Friday, we're going to be on the Russell House patio. For this coming Monday, it's going to be on the Russell House patio. On Tuesday, it's going to be on Green Street in front of Russell. Then on Wednesday, on the last day of the election, it's going to be back in front of Preston. On top of that, there was a violation. Y'all can check the public elections folder to see what that was and our rationale and reason and everything. And other than that, tomorrow from 6 to 8, we have executive candidates debate in the Russell House Ballroom. I yield my time to questions.
The commissioner yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the freshman council. Are there any representatives present? You are recognized.
Hey everybody, my name is Liam Amick. I'm on the Liberties and Representations Committee and Freshman Council.
My name's Swarnim Maid. I'm on the Sustainability Committee of Freshman Council.
So to provide some updates, Liberties and Representation, planning is finalized now for our Beyond the Ballot event, which will be taking place on March 17th from 11 to 2. We're planning to have a link tree with links to free news subscriptions provided by the school and also an elections calendar and a Find Your Representatives link. And then we also finished our transportation slideshow that we'll be sharing with you 101, and we're getting that out to the program director, I think today. So they'll kind of look at that and approve that to hopefully be added to the curriculum next year.
And then sustainability, as Abby said, we're tabling with the Sustainability Committee and Senate on St. Patrick's Day, so March 17th from 11:30 to 2. We're doing clover-shaped flyers with the importance of recycling and then also handing out succulents.
Academics is finalizing their plans for their Academics Resource Fair, which is going to be a very big event on March 4th from 10 to 1. There will be pizza, and please plan on stopping by. And also, they still need faculty recommendations. If you know any faculty that might be interested in participating, please reach out. I can get the contact information out if you guys need that.
And then Student Life is collaborating with organizations across campus, including Greek Life and RHA, to place food donation boxes in residence halls, Greek Village, and the LSC. All donations will go to the Gamecock Community Shop, and the drive is running from now until March 2nd, so feel free to donate.
And then finally, Health and Safety has planned their 4th and final event, and that will be on March 3rd from 11 to 2. They will be planning on giving out Celsius donuts and notes of positivity. It's kind of a midterm themed event. I think the name they're workshopping is like Midterm Madness or something. So please feel free to stop by that. And we yield our time to questions.
The representatives yield their time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Great job, guys. We'll now hear a report from the Constitutional Council. Are there any representatives present? Seeing none. We will now hear a report from the Speaker of the Student Senate. I'm recognizing myself. I don't have a lot. Just to make sure everybody's all on the same page, we went over this last week, but in the OneDrive, there are pieces today that people submitted to my office to be read onto the first reading calendar. If you want to see those in advance, it's in the folder labeled pending. So you're more than welcome to access those ahead of time. Also, one of the bills that we have this week is 55 pages long. So I want you all to just know that now when you go into your committee meetings and things like that, that it is 55 pages long. And I know that that's very long, but y'all just have to work together to work through it. I know for rules, we were at rules for well over 2 hours working on this piece. So just make sure that you are reading all 55 pages. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to let the sponsor know. And then just reminder one more time about dates. I've gone over it every single Senate session, but I just want to make sure everybody's all on the same page. On the 2nd of March, that's going to be the special Senate session for State of the Student Body. That's required. Class excuses will be okay because it's obviously outside of our normal scope. And then Wednesday, March 4th is the last Senate of the 117 student Senate. So that means that the last full legislative cycle will have to start with pieces that get submitted by 12 p.m. this Sunday. So if you have a piece that you want to do a full legislative cycle 12 p.m. this Sunday is the last deadline, which is crazy that we've gotten so close to the end. But yeah, so that last Senate session will be the 4th, and then y'all will be done with your time as student senators in the 117th student senate. It's crazy, so right before spring break. Other than that, just let me know if you have any questions about OneDrive. I feel like the transition is going pretty well. Thank you for everybody that's been showing up for tabling events. Your efforts haven't gone unnoticed. And with that, I yield my time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none. We are now in line for a report from the student body treasurer, Treasurer Ashley Reynolds, who are recognized.
Hey y'all, just the usual reimbursement report. We have one right now awaiting assignment for $29, 0 that have been assigned, so they've all been worked through that they've been assigned. We have 19 waiting on student info, 12 of which are past due for around $26,000. 8 have been submitted to payment for about $6,000, and then 3 were closed last week for $4,000. Yeah, so that's great. I mean, I'm really pleased with the reimbursement process and how it's worked this year. I had a meeting with Parker Leak and Ambra and Matt on Monday, just talking about ways that we can fine tune the system and make it better going forward. So lots of great conversations there. Give for Garnet is coming up. I know that it is March 25th, which is like right after a new people will be inaugurated, but please come out. Please tell your friends to come out. We'll still have a student government table with a whole bunch of fun stuff at it. SC exchanges this weekend. I'm sure Courtney will touch on it more, but I sent out the original like sign up genius for volunteering. If you like signed up and can't volunteer or didn't sign up and want to volunteer, please just reach out to me. We definitely need all the volunteers we can get. Carolina Day was a success. Courtney, I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. The AI Day for the university, which is kind of a new thing, is on Thursday. I'm speaking on a student panel at 2 o'clock in Russell House Ballroom if anyone is interested. So that will be a lot of fun. We have some other schools coming as well. And then USCDM is this Saturday, so please go out to their main event. And then you guys know I told you guys a couple weeks ago that I sit on the committee that's looking for a new, like, basically Garnet Gate. I know we had a couple senators write a piece on it, but if you have any suggestions, want to know anything about kind of like our looking process, please let me know. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The treasurer yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Thank you. We will now hear a report from the student body vice president. Vice President Jordan Richardson, you are recognized. This is a side note. I forgot to mention this during my report, and I think Courtney's probably going to say the same thing. If you're volunteering at SC Exchange, dress code for volunteers is like Gamecock, like preppy. Like think about what university ambassadors wear. So like just like a nice Carolina shirt or garnet colored shirt and some pants, but don't feel like you need to be wearing like business professional like you would wear to Senate. Just something appropriate, no sweatpants, leggings, etc.
Hey y'all, we just wrapped up Carolina Stability Week. It was a huge success. We had 3 events that had great turnouts. We are partnering with the Center of Student Health and Wellbeing for their Smash the Scale event on the 25th. They told me they won't need volunteers, but they will want student government participation, so it'd be fun to go to Smash the Scale. Like Ashley said, Dance Marathon this weekend. Please register if you haven't already. It's going to be an all-day thing, but we will be there later on in the evening because of the SC Exchange. Oh yeah, I've been enrolling Akshay Tepal about safety walk because I do want to hear an update on the lighting and stuff since the first semester. He said he's going to be getting back to me, so fingers crossed. I don't know if it's going to happen while I'm still in office, but worst case, I'll just keep it to the next vice president. And then the election is going on, so I'm trying to get as many students to vote as possible. I put out our Blackboard message to students. Courtney and I just filmed the video today. And we're working with Tristan, the elections commissioner, to do a 7-group event on the 24th to encourage students to vote. So yeah, hopefully that'll be success and we'll get more people to vote. That's all I have. So thank you, my time to question.
The vice president yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Thank you. We'll now hear a report from the student body president. President Courtney Cox, you are recognized. I have one more thing. I'm sorry, I forgot these like 2 points at the end. If you are in Senate right now and you are interested in being in Senate next year, it's come to my attention that some people did not know that you needed to run for re-election. It's not too late. If you didn't file, you can always file as a write-in candidate. The SG Advisors or Elections Commission would be happy to walk you through that. But if you're in Senate right now, you're not guaranteed to be in Senate after elections. You have to rerun for your position.
Hi, y'all. Happy Wednesday. So I actually just got back from the Town and Gown event with the mayor. I really want to applaud my lab team. They did absolutely incredible. They covered topics from campus safety, game day safety, housing affordability, food insecurity, basically anything and everything. The mayor was incredibly impressed. So I'm very excited to see what connections the university and the city can create. On a very similar note, I was able to attend the meeting with SAB last week with the governor. Governor was equally impressed with all of their topics and has asked for follow-up on a lot of the topics that they discussed. And I want to thank all of you guys for attending Carolina Day. If you were able to go yesterday, the Board of Trustees pulled me aside and was very proud at the amount of people that we had show up. That day is very important, especially to our legislators. We have a lot of Gamecocks in the House and the Senate. So I love to see all of you guys come out and interact with you all. So some of the things that I'm doing at the moment, I had a conversation with the Carolina Experience Office. If you didn't know, they're moving down to the basement of Russell House. So I'm working with them and with Student Affairs too to make sure that we are taking care of the downstairs of Russell House and making sure that it looks accessible. It is not the most accessible location, so I want to make sure that our infrastructure we're trying to keep up with the infrastructure down there. Additionally, we had some good conversation about how to engage with upperclassmen, transfer students, and student organizations over the next year. They've been very successful. They had over 600 appointments, primarily the seniors that were more interested in career readiness. So hoping that we can start finding key areas. And it also furthered our conversations regarding having a centralized app. I have a conversation with Bryce Bible coming up and pulling in some key stakeholders of what needs to go on an app and how do we make that accessible to students. On a similar note, I've had lots of conversations, especially in the past week, about Russell House expansion and have primarily been advocating on walkability, location, and pedestrian safety. Some dates to keep in mind. We have State of the Student Body, March 3rd. That is a special Senate session. But everybody will be there. I really, really want to recognize all of your work. So I'm working with Maura to pull a lot of the legislation that has made a lot of change on campus, but just highlighting all of your individual accomplishments as well. I'm very proud of the Senate. You guys have been very productive. Additionally, March 18th is going to be the Let's Clear the Air event. That's the day before inauguration. I've been working with my cabinet. That's going to be a key event, especially for transition docs. So all of my cabinet will be focusing on tabling for their specific areas. And then I know that you all are going to be working with your delegations. But that's going to be a great time for us to bring the new exec out and let them hear directly from students about some areas that they need. And then from that, be able to put it into their transition doc so we can kind of continue the work moving forward in the next year. And then on a fun note, the night of March 18th is going to be the Cockies. This is our student government awards / end of year banquet that we have. Jordan and I are working on it right now. It's going to be in 322. And then our very special friend, Sarah Branyan, is going to be doing some work from abroad. And she's going to be sending out some information about superlatives. So be on the lookout for that. And I think that's all from me right now. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The president yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We are now in line for special orders of the Senate. Are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other the clerk will now read?
A communication from the Elections Commission regarding the
That was a mistake. We did that last week.
a communication from the Office of the Speaker of the Student Senate regarding the resignation of Ahmed Iftikhar from the position of Student Senator.
Received. Continuing on with the special orders of the Senate, are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other the clerk will now read? Seeing no more special orders of the Senate, we are now in line for the motion period. Are there any motions on the floor at this time? Speaker Pro Tempore Violet. There's been a motion to add a recommendation to the first reading calendar. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The piece is added to the first reading calendar and granted the legislative number of 196. Chairwoman Diapolito. Does the sponsor find this amendment friendly or unfriendly? Seeing as the sponsor has found this amendment friendly, this amendment is now adopted. Senator Jacobson. There's been a motion to remove Senator Jacobson from the Finance Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Speaker Pro Tempore Violette. There's been a motion to remove Speaker Pro Tempore Violette from the Judiciary Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Ward. There's been a motion to remove Senator Ward from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Seitler. There's been a motion to add a recommendation to the first reading calendar. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The recommendation is added to the first reading calendar and granted the legislative number of 197. Chairwoman Cumby. Does the sponsor find this amendment friendly or unfriendly? Seeing as the sponsor has found this amendment friendly, this amendment is now adopted. Chairwoman Cumby. There's been a motion to table SBL 117-174 indefinitely. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. SBL 117-174 is tabled indefinitely. Any other motions on the floor at this time? Seeing no further motions, is there a motion to dispense of this motion period? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Give me 1 second just so I can make the amended pieces public for y'all. You should be able to see them in just like the big Senate folder. It's 183 and 185. We are now on the call of the introduction of the new legislation. The clerk will now read.
SBL 117-190, sponsored by Senators Violette, Boswell, Sheridan, a bill to optimize and expand the Office of Student Body Treasurer.
The sponsors are recognized.
Hello, everyone. Those of us that remember a few weeks ago, we had the ad hoc created to look into the Office of Student Body Treasurer, look at the historical codes and such, and there's our report on that. Over the past several weeks, the Select Committee on Treasurer Reform has met to evaluate the structure and functionality of the Office of the Student Body Treasurer. Our charge was not to rewrite the system from scratch, but to assess whether structural improvements were necessary. Tonight, we will briefly summarize our findings and conclusions. First, we reviewed our historical versions of USC's student government codes, especially between 2016 and the present, to understand how the treasurer's role evolved. This included its removal and reinstatement. Second, we analyzed peer SEC institutions, including Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M, and others to compare structural models. Third, we evaluated our current internal and external financial processes to identify friction points and inefficiencies. Our goal was structural clarity, not wide sweeping change.
I took on a lot of the external research. I looked into a lot of other SEC schools, and I reached out to their treasurers, but they're not very responsive. So I just looked through the codes instead. And then I actually did end up reaching out to, I checked the peer aspirant list because that is we look to those schools a lot for what we want to do in the future. And so what I found from the peer aspirant institutions was actually just a shout out to Carolina real quick. We have, I would say, the best treasurer's branch of any school that I've researched that is comparable to ours. Our treasurer is the only one I can see that's directly elected by the student body. But a big problem that I saw with a lot of other schools is either it was always too heavy on one side. Either the treasurer or their VP of finance or finance director, whatever you want to call it, had all the power, or the finance committee / the finance committee chairman had all the power. And there was not really a system of checks and balances there. So the conclusions that we drew for that were that we need more engagement with organizations before they submit requests. And we need clear communication about the funding processes, and we need reduced constriction at the review stage, meaning comptrollers are given some form of assistance with their workload. And so our overall conclusion from that was that if reform occurs externally, it should focus on capacity and outreach, not just a complete restructuring of the funding process that is really just created.
And I guess pivoting a little bit on that, we then turned to looking to the treasurer's role internally within like the student government budget. We made pretty much like two observations from that. So first, USC's internal system works, yet it relies heavily on personal coordination rather than like structural clarity when it comes to the internal system. And second, unlike some SEC schools, our treasurer does not formally lead internal budget formation, though in many peer institutions, the treasurer plays a more central role in that process. This committee discussed whether increasing the treasurer's leadership in internal budget formation would provide clear accountability, give the treasurer a stronger electoral mandate, and then increase transparency in fiscal planning. Our conclusion was that internal reform should, preserve the speed, maintain separation of branches, but also potentially strengthen the treasurer ownership of internal financial planning. That's not to say that they're going to have like complete control over that internal budget. It's still going to be everyone in exec, anyone within student government who wants to speak to internal budget, they're going to have the ability to do so, but it's going to make sure that we're defining that like checks and balances pretty well, that when it comes to finances, the treasurer takes a pretty lead role in that.
However, across all discussions, one theme emerged very clearly. USC's treasurer branch is structurally sound compared to our peer institutions. If reform is pursued, it should be incremental, small changes here and there, targeted and completely operational, nothing sweeping or reactionary. Specifically, enhancing outreach, not really over-regulating the funding request, clarifying internal leadership, not creating large advisory bodies to exist, and 3, maintaining executive legislative separation with clear professional coordination between both governmental branches.
In summary, the committee does not recommend a dramatic restructuring of the treasurer's office. Instead, we recommend a couple smaller incremental steps. So 1, we want to preserve the current external funding balance. 2, we want to explore operational improvements and outreach. 3, improve the bond between the Senate and the Office of Student Body Treasurer to make sure that they're working together. And continue comparative research potentially into the next term before pursuing constitutional amendments.
With this being said, we have drafted this bill to create new positions within the Office of Student Body Treasurer to support some of the issues that the committee has found. With that, we yield to questions.
The sponsors yield their time to questions. Are there any questions? Senator Spurgeon.
It is specifically only to help the Office of Student Body Treasurer. I know the LSC does this already, but it's just to add a little leg up to the Treasurer's office. Everything will still be protected information.
Senator Spurgeon.
Simply just helping the office. I mean, the biggest problem that we've seen, and we have spoken to some newly created orgs like there's an structural engineering one, that had difficulty starting up because they didn't have any support from the Office of Student Body Treasurer. I mean, granted, there are resources available with the LSC, but having a little bit of support from student government itself goes a long way.
Senator Lewis.
So we wanted to our bill creates a legislative aid to sort of fill in as a proxy when the student body treasurer cannot be there on finance committee, to come to Senate when the student body treasurer cannot be there, and be their legislative liaison / advisor. And then it creates 2 positions of director of outreach, and then the directors of outreach can hire no less than 2 and no more than 5 people.
Senator Lewis.
Well, we looked at how the comptrollers are structured right now. We didn't want to go too overkill with this. We didn't want to bloat the office with positions that, quite frankly, don't need to exist. So we with everything that we found, we decided that, hey, maybe having only a little team similar to the way that the vice president's branch works to assist in, treasurer's workshops, helping orgs even start the funding request process. This is all to help them. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Spurgeon.
We have simply just reached out to orgs themselves that have difficulty starting up. But, now that you mentioned it, we will reach out to the LSC with it.
Senator Fry.
These specific things that we mentioned in our speech was only things that we recommend down the road. It can be done at any point. The bill that we have presented today is simply just for this term and the conclusions of this ad hoc found as of this moment.
Chairwoman Diapolito.
Not at all. Not at all. It's simply just an assistance. They still have a bulk of the responsibility, along with the Office of Student Vice President.
Senator Lewis.
The positions that we have created in the treasurer's office exist in the president's branch as well as the vice president's branch. The vice president branch has their own outreach team. Our outreach team is meant to do something incredibly important, which is to help student orgs when they submit funding requests, to help guide them along with that process and keep them engaged in the process while also helping put on things like the treasurer's workshop. And then we already have a director of legislative affairs in the president's branch, and we figured, and there's plenty of people who monitor legislation. We figured that the treasurer's branch could use someone who can be there, who knows that they need to be there when the treasurer is not there, instead of just assuming that someone will be there. And
Chairwoman Diapolito.
I know that in my discussions, because I've had a few discussions with our advisors, they were very positive about this, specifically with outreach.
Senator Lewis.
Let me clarify. We are not having them take on any responsibilities. This is just to help the student side get even communicate with them. This is not taking away anything the LSC is doing. I want to make that very clear. It's not taking away the responsibility. I mean, granted, sorry if I was a little misguided here. I have spoken with the advisors, so therefore I have spoken to the people in the LSC about this. Sorry for the confusion on that.
I do want to clarify that the advisors work with student government. Like, student government is a part of the LSC, but the advisors don't necessarily handle, like, student organizations. They handle SG. Any other questions? Senator Spurgeon.
sorry if I confused you, but it was not to change the checks and balances system at all. It was just to say that that is a problem that I found in other treasurer's branches and other schools' finance committees that we did not want to.
Yeah, we think that the checks and balances that occur right now are very good. Like we were saying, our treasurer's branch is next to none. We are the, what's the word? We're the peak. We're the peak of, we're the model of treasurer's branches across the SEC. Most tend to follow in our suit.
Any other questions? Okay. Seeing no further questions, this legislation is now referred to the Finance and Judiciary Committees. Continuing on with the call of the new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 117-191, sponsored by Chairperson Doppolito, a bill to organize and simplify Chapter 1 of the Student Government Code.
The sponsor is recognized to speak on this legislation.
Hey guys, this is that 55-page piece. This is all the Chapter 1's revisions judiciary is looking over this tomorrow, and there will be an amendment that I am more than willing to share, and actually will share with all the other committee chairs so they can share with the committees. I also want to state that it's very important to read over every single line of this legislation. It's a very big piece, I know. I apologize for that, but a lot of work went into this. And anyone in committees, if you have questions, I'm going to try my best to go to other committees, but if I'm not able to go, committee members or chair people, please give me a call. I'm more than willing to talk everything through. I want to make sure that this is the best piece that it can be, and that requires everyone's help and opinion. I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, this legislation is now referred to all committees. Continuing on with the call of the new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBO 117-192, sponsored by Senator Lewis, a recommendation to expand the hours of the Gamecock Community Shop.
Senator Lewis, you are recognized.
Yeah, let me just say this. This is a pretty simple one here that I got here written. Basically, what this is asking for to extend the hours of the community Gamecock, the community shop down across the street on Assembly, down there in the old building. Unrealistically, if you need food or if you need, essentials, getting essentials is not going to fall within the normal business hours. And quite frankly, I just think it's very appalling that we have such strict hours when it comes to helping people in need. If you look at if you read at the bottom of the recommendation, it says that I listed a suggested time on there that I think they should extend their time to. It actually gave an hour opening. I suggested an hour early, and then I close an hour late. But I think we need to be, if we're going to be helping students, we need to be accommodating to students. People say that, staff have the comment of saying, oh, staff got the project. Well, my God, if we're helping students, then how are you going to help them if you closing shop up at 5 o'clock and they in class? Be realistic on this. I don't think this is too much, but with that, I'm going to give my time to questions.
The senator yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, this legislation is now referred to the Student Life Committee. Continuing on with the call of the new legislation, the clerk will now read. Senator Lewis.
SBO 117-193, sponsored by Senator Lewis, a recommendation to add resume workshops during new student orientation.
Senator Lewis, you are once again recognized.
Yeah, this is another, I think, simple recommendation that I, have written here. And you know what reminded me of this? Every time you go in the bottom of here in the LSC, the new orientation, the woman and the man, they offers right in the glass window beside the post office. So, when you walk there, you get to see them. But anyway, I think that, if we're telling students they need to get internships and jobs on campus, we got to offer better resources to them. Orientation is a good, new student orientation office is a great resource, but putting a resume building class workshop for both students and parents to be able to attend, I think is very beneficial, because they probably would never go to a resume workshop, outside of orientation. But if it's there and they have it during orientation, I think that'd be more useful. They have all types of things here at orientation. So I think this is very appropriate to add a resume building class. We talked about adding some other things here in the Senate to orientation. So I think, orientation needs to be a good use of time. They're coming here, they're getting wine and dine, and they're getting food and meal and boarding. So we need to make sure they're getting good education as well. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Senator Loosry.
my idea what added in there, but you know I remember when I went through orientation, I didn't attend everything, you know, because some of the stuff was optional on there, you know, but it was a lot of walking though.
Senator Boswell.
Well, number one, university, you know, 101. I disagree with that. I think, you know, students need to just skip that and just get to the foundation of learning. But in my opinion, I think it's where the parents are at. You know, parents are not attending University 101. They are attending orientation. You know, these are the first steps they see as orientation. And they offer I mean, you know, at orientation, they tell you about part-time job fairs and things like that. So I don't see why that's to fit in, you know, about the job opportunity they have at orientation.
Senator Spurgeon.
Yes, because they bring in everybody else they want to do and speak on things.
Senator Modica. Is there a question?
The reason I suggested orientation, you know, we get them the first step, you know, they come in here in campus. But again, I mean, they have all different types of classes that, you know, the parents attend that don't pertain to parents. And I think, you know, they're adding different section of different classes as well, you know. So I think, you know, it's not out of the norm. I mean, it's, you know, it's a good trait to have.
Senator Santiago Cedillo.
I hear your question. And what I would say on that is that I think that, you know, I want to focus more on what the recommendation is asking for a resume, you know, classification for orientation, you know, so I can't really speak on, you know, how tedious or jam-packed the orientation schedule is, you know, so, I mean, you know, if they don't want to do it, I mean, they don't have to do it, you know, I mean, Allison, she's very vocal about, you know, what goes on in that office, you know, so, I mean, yeah.
Chairperson Koviak.
Um, you know, I think it would serve them a good purpose. I mean, if they unroll, they wouldn't even get to the class. So that would be my thinking. But
I'm going to bounce around and then come back. There's a lot of questions. Senator Fry.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's an interesting one. What I would say on that one is that, determining what this happened, I will follow the appropriate steps, follow to implement this and do what I need to do with the recommendation.
Any other questions? Senator Gay.
Yeah, that's a total, that's a totally valid point, and and I would take into consideration. What I'll also say, this is only on the first reading calendar here. So we're not debating this to vote on tonight. It still has to go to committee. And me and Jacob and Lance, we get together and we will. Most likely there's going to be an amendment to this. So I would say email one of those chairs, and we can really spruce this up if we need to.
I was just gonna say, just a gentle reminder, they're all good questions, but just like watch what other people are asking, because I think we're asking some repetitive questions that have been answered. Any other questions? Senator Boswell.
The recommendation says new student orientation. I can't comment or about the details of how they will implement something like this.
Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, this legislation is now referred to the Academics Committee. Continuing on with the call of the new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 117-194, sponsored by Senator Lewis, the recommendation to establish clear guidelines on student religious expression in classrooms.
Senator Lewis, you're once again recognized.
Yeah, so this recommendation is it's a pretty in-depth recommendation if you read it. Basically what it says is asking, a policy, there's asking the policy to be reviewed and to, really to be enhanced and to have a clear guidelines of how when it comes to religion expression within the classroom. Now, some of you may be thinking, what, doesn't this violate, federal and state law? No, it would not. You can already do that now, but you can risk, what may come with that. And, what I mean what come with that is, is Professor, had the freedom in the classroom. I think it's, it's something that needs to be developed. The provost, she really needs to look into getting a policy like this, and that's what the recommendation says about that. But I'm gonna leave it at that because we have a live stream going. But I yield my time to questions.
Senator yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Chairperson Koviak.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I can't give a detailed number on something like that, but but I will say this, when this recommendation got on the calendar, and I was talking to another student about it, and they were saying, sometimes these professors can get in there and make it a political room, which it should not be going true. We should be protecting what students first.
Senator Walker.
That will be based on the university's policy and state law.
Senator Spurgeon.
So basically the issue is if there's no set clear policy right now, or current procedure, whatever term we want to use. So I think it needs to be something clear, definite, and set in, and set in stone. Yes.
Chairperson Tobiak.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I totally, that statement is, I hear that statement, but I also would say that sometimes university policies, they typically follow state law, but state law is sometimes more different. So that's what I would say.
I just want to make sure everybody knows that state law would trump it's like the student government codes, constitution, that whole thing. If university policy says one thing and state law says another, state law trumps university policy. Senator Middleton.
Oh yeah, I mean I totally know what religion expression is, but again, according to it is really defined. To me, what I would tell you expression would be if anything would be verbal, written, anything that's demonstrated or said that could be considered an expression. If you get up and you walk out of the room, that can be considered an expression of some sort. So that's what I would say on that.
Chairwoman Cumby.
Yes, I did, but I mean, again, what's your second question? Ideally, yeah, I have a sort of things, I would love to see ideally with this, there's, I would love, like some kind of sign up right now, maybe a sign up in the classroom, maybe it be clearly defined in syllabus. There's a policy that say professors have to put an AI policy in there, but they don't define everything else, and then they come up the last minute. But I've taken care of those. But yes.
And point of information, the policy Emma just talked about is available on our website. It covers freedom of expression, access to campus. So basically like what speech is limited, what speech isn't. And also just to clarify, when I say limited speech, it's things that are limited, like within state and federal law, such as violent speech. Any other questions? Senator Spurgeon.
I don't, to me personally, I think that the recommendation addresses that, very clear. And it's really defined in the, really defined in the recommendation.
Any other questions? Seeing none, this legislation is now referred to the Student Life Committee. Continuing on with the call of the new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 117-195, sponsored by Senator Keenan, a recommendation to implement new blind spot mirrors, automated light indicators for parking spaces, and limits on the size of vehicles able to park in corner spaces in Horizon parking garage.
The sponsors are recognized. Senator Ward. There's been a motion to appoint Senator Walker as Senator Ward's proxy. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Ward. Granted.
So this piece here is basically just discussing the parking garage that's the Horizon, the one that's located right across from Strom. The gym is also the one that's next to the Horizon building, right by the corner of Main Street and Blossom Street, if I'm not mistaken. But so Horizon Garage itself has a lot of tight corners and a lot of very tight spots, and not a lot of those corners and spots are highlighted by parking mirrors, which are like the discs that like reflect and show everything. So some of those aren't even there, some of them are missing, and it makes it very hard to see the vehicles and people walking around these parking garages. And also all the corner spots are not necessarily marked, or even if they are marked as compact only, there is a lot of big, like longer and wider vehicles that park in the compact only spots, and it also makes it a lot harder to get around those corners, especially when you're going up a ramp or down a ramp, and it can lead to more accidents, more fender benders, and just more stress upon students. So this is basically just trying to take all the stress away and make it easier to find a parking spot by the headlights over top, which red for no spaces, green for a space, similar to how Bull Street is. Add mirrors around the parking garage so that you can see around blind corners, and limit the size of vehicles allowed to park in corner spaces, so that way you can get around the corner without having to worry about hitting a car. And I yield my time to questions.
The sponsor yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Senator Fry.
I have not, no. I was gonna do that after.
Senator Walker.
Yes. I was thinking about that, but I wanted to test the waters with just one first, because I felt like if I went too broad with it, it might be too much of a thing to ask. And if I focused on one and it were to work out, then you could expand it to other parking garages. But it was something I was thinking about, and if it were to be an amendment that would, say, be more successful, it would be something I'd be open to.
Chairwoman Diapolito. Any other questions? Seeing none, this legislation is now referred to the Health and Safety Committee. Chairperson Koviak. There's been a motion to commit SBL 117-194 to the Academics Committee. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The bill is, or the recommendation is committed to the Academics Committee. Continuing, Senator Middleton. There's been a motion to appoint Senator Sheridan as Senator Middleton's proxy. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Middleton. Granted. Continuing on with the call of the new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 117-196, a recommendation to deep clean and repair the restroom facilities in the Humanities Classroom Building.
The sponsor is recognized.
Hello again, everyone. This came to me yesterday, actually, as I was going to use one of these facilities. I walk in there and the stench is disgusting. I know this has become a bit of a problem all across the Humanities Classroom Building. I have an email drafted that I'm going to be sending to Leroy Sims, the Assistant Director of Custodial Services for the university. He is included in this piece, so he will be sent this piece if it passes. But I do intend on speaking with him, setting up a time to meet tomorrow so that we can talk about this, because I know it is a bit of an issue. Pretty straightforward stuff. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The Speaker Pro Tempore yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, this legislation is now referred to the Student Life Committee. Continuing on with the call of the new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 117-197, a recommendation to provide a directory of candidates who filed for candidacy.
The sponsor is recognized.
First, I just want to add that Senator Ryan here was also a sponsor. It didn't update on the document. But anyways, basically, this piece is pretty straightforward. It'll just provide a updated, conspicuous online document that as candidates file during the filing period for election, it'll just be updated and it'll be open to the public. And kind of with that, it would not go to, it would not start until next year, of course. And then
All right, there's some benefits to this because, as we all know, basically we can't tell who's basically running for what until the ballot comes out. So some benefits that I was looking into, one is transparency, because as a student government, we're really supposed to be transparent about things. So the election process will be more transparent. Everyone knows who's running. Two, there's a fair campaign preparation. Candidates can better prepare for their platforms, speeches, and outreach strategies, knowing who they're running against, which can help them build a stronger campaign and also know what the other campaigns are not tackling. Three, it encourages professionalism. When other candidates know who else is in the race, it can promote respectful competition. Four, informed voter engagement. This is the biggest one. Most of these students, let's be honest, when the ballot comes out, they don't know everybody running. So if this is out, the students already know who's running for what their campaign entails, and I think that's the biggest benefit of doing this would be for the student voters to be more educated. And yeah. Okay, here's something to add.
I just want to add that there is the candidates guide that is released, but it's normally released closer to election. Like, it's not out yet, I believe, which does come out. So basically, this would just come out earlier to provide mostly the candidates with the information, but also so students can start getting prepared. We yield our time to questions.
Speaker Pro Tempore Violette.
It is? Okay, perfect. I just haven't seen it.
Senator Spurgeon.
It originally was a codes change, but I was speaking with our advisors about it, and they decided for a recommendation instead. Because part of it is they're talking about potentially moving the candidates meeting to the last day of filing, and originally our codes change was to put it in the candidates meeting package, but then we just decided to start with a recommendation, and then when we find a spot in the code, we will add that if that's the route that'll be better.
Senator Gopal.
Yes, that is a good point. We'll definitely keep that in consideration. Thank you.
Senator Lewis.
So basically what it's going to accomplish is as people are preparing for their campaigns, they'll have like a better idea. So say someone's running unopposed and they don't know that, and then they spend a whole bunch of money and time on a campaign where they didn't necessarily need to. It can alleviate some of that like stress, time, and money that they would spend. Whereas if it's a really like spot that's a lot of people are running for and say they don't know that necessarily, they can help better prepare for their campaign, which is the main benefit.
Senator Boswell.
Can you rephrase that? Like,
I'm going to point of information really fast just because I want to read from the legislation because maybe it will provide clarification. It would include their preferred name, school, and the position they filed to run for. So not like platform. I mean, y'all can answer, but just I want to read off the legislation to you.
yeah, so basically it's not meant to give anyone an advantage at all. It's just quite literally who they are, what specific college they're in, and position. So that way other candidates get an idea of who else runs.
Senator Lewis.
This list only includes those that have been approved to run and have gone through the filing thing. So like, if it's someone that's like filed but they haven't been approved, or it's someone that like removes it, it would be removed or not added at all.
Senator Lewis.
We can add a spot maybe about if they want to stay private, they can, but
I'm going to provide just like a general point of information. When you file for election, you sign documents basically consenting to the fact that you are filing to run for a public position. Like you're required to go to a candidate's debate that is live streamed on YouTube. Your name is used in the electronic ballot that's sent to all students on campus. That's like part of the documentation for our friends who maybe filled a vacant seat, like when you file to run. That is what is in there. Chairperson Koviak. Any other questions? I'm seeing none. This legislation is now referred to the Judiciary Committee. Continuing on with the call of the new legislation, the clerk will now read. Hearing none, we are now on the call of the uncontested legislation. The clerk will now read.
SBO 117-182, sponsored by Chairperson Doppolito, a bill to organize and simplify Chapter 3 of the Student Government Code.
Chairwoman Doppolito, you are recognized.
These are the Chapter 3 revisions. I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Chairwoman Cumby.
I think 182 is still in introduced. 183 is in the big one because it had an amendment.
I'm going to be honest, I'm looking at it right now. No, you're good. It says it was last edited by Ash. I don't know how that's possible, but. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, and we did a
I'm sorry.
space and then we took it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It did happen. Yeah, sorry.
Any other questions? Ash, wow. You never fail to raise my heart rate. I really appreciate that. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, we will now move to a voice vote on this legislation. All those in favor of passage say aye. All opposed. The ayes have it. The legislation is now adopted. Continuing on with the call of the uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBO 117-184, sponsored by Senator Sanders, the recommendation to add active shooter protocols to mandatory coffee modules for incoming freshmen and transfer students.
Senator Sanders, you are recognized. Senator Mock-Pusia? Okay.
Hey guys, first of all, I really appreciate your support of this piece. So people I've reached out to, I reached out to Miss Leah, hold on, I'm getting like her. Yeah, okay, so Miss Leach Hughes, who is the director of New Student Orientation, as well as her office manager, Jackson Garland. So I'm hoping they can point me to a contact, but I'm really excited about this, and I'm serious about implementation. Like, I believe that this is would be very historic for the SEC, and yeah, I really appreciate your support. I would be concerned if you didn't, to be quite honest. So yeah, I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Senator Sheridan.
So from what I've seen, it is internal. Yes. Like all the programs are have been produced by University of South Carolina. What I'm under the impression of, but I could be wrong, but that's what I'm pretty sure.
I think that's it. Any other questions? All right. Seeing no further questions, we will now move to a voice vote on this legislation. All those in favor of passage say aye. All opposed. The ayes have it. This legislation is now adopted. Continuing on with the call of the uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 117-186, sponsored by Senator Seitler, the recommendation legislation to improve accessibility and information transparency on the centralized student organization
The
platform.
sponsor is recognized.
Hello again. So basically, this piece has two goals. The first is to help provide guidelines to the committee overseeing the bid for the new Garnet Gate, such as like just ensuring that the new platform is easy to use, it's transparent, and it's very like easy to navigate for both the clubs using it and the students using it. And then the second, and what the majority of this piece is about, is providing like a guideline for clubs that whenever they have to like update their Garnet Gate, the current thing only says they have to update the rosters. This would add that they basically have to update it with current information as well. Once a semester, and its information such as links to their social media, application links, times of their meetings, and description of the club. And it is up to the nature of the club. So if it's like an application-based club, they wouldn't post the meeting time and stuff, if that makes sense. And it also would not go into effect until the new platform is chosen, so clubs don't waste time. And it is aimed to improve student engagement and retention. I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we will now move to a voice vote on this legislation. All those in favor of passage say aye. All opposed. The ayes have it. This legislation is now adopted. Continuing on. Oh, good job, first piece. Sorry, Senator Taylor. Continuing on with the call of the uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 117-187, sponsored by Senator Jamie Ryan and Nicole DiLorenzo, a recommendation to school-sponsored subleasing form remodel.
The senators are recognized.
Okay, so this legislation, again, is about school-sponsored subleasing forum for study abroad. So there's so many students at the school that study abroad. However, there's difficulty often finding subleasing options just so they don't have to pay for a full year of housing and they can split it with another student. Currently, we found Garnet Living, which is not school-sponsored, and an off-campus messaging board, which is confusing and disorganized. So this would really just create a school-sponsored messaging board that's organized, user-friendly, and safe for students to use. I yield to questions.
The senator yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we will now move to a voice vote on this legislation. All those in favor of passage say aye. All opposed. The ayes have it. This legislation is now adopted. Good job, first piece. Continuing on with the call of the uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 117-178, sponsored by Chairwoman Cumby and Senator Daly, a recommendation to implement healthcare vending machines.
The senators are recognized.
Hey guys, this was a blast from the past, but we're just still trying to push this through. This was an initiative last term, and then there was a little bit of transition within like the Student Health and Wellbeing Office, and so we're just trying to bring that back, and we wanted to make sure that we got everybody's input here in this Senate and the RHA Senate before we contacted, so that we could have all our ducks in a row, and just make sure that it's as well researched and refined as possible, so we can actually bring about implementation this year. And I yield to questions.
The senator yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we will now move to a voice vote on this legislation. All those in favor of passage say aye. All opposed. The ayes have it, and the legislation is now adopted. Continuing on with the call of the uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read. Hearing none, we are now on the call of the contested legislation. The clerk will now read.
SBL 117-183, sponsored by Chairperson Doppolito, a bill to organize and simplify Chapter 6 of the Student Government Code.
The chairwoman is recognized.
Hey guys, these are the Chapter 6 revisions, but I just wanted to explain the amendment a little further. This is just saying, so while I was working on Chapter 1, I realized a lot of the language just said a position could be removed with the approval of that executive officer to their respective, of their respective branch, and then when the removal must be communicated to the office. So instead of that being repeated a lot of times and making the codes a lot longer, it just went into Chapter 6 instead, where it talks about how each type of member of student government can be removed. Now it's also just saying that it's with the approval of the executive officer, just in case like secretaries remove members from their position. That's why it's worded like that. And I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we are now in line for a period of debate. Do any senators wish to speak on this matter? Hearing none, we are now moving to a roll call vote. The clerk will call the roll. Please don't forget who you're proxying for, especially if they just appointed you. Thank you for not motioning for a voice vote, because I would have said no.
Baldinger, Bartlett, Venegas, Boswell, Toviak, Cumby, Sapolito, Davis, DiLorenzo, Freer, Fry, Goggins, Gay, George, Gopel, Hunter, Jacobson, Keenan, Lewis, Lusry, Middleton, Monica, Moore, Wakapusia, Primus, Ryan, Sams, Sanders, Santiago Cedillo, Sheridan, Seitler, Spurgeon, Tapia, Kalaka, Torres, Violette, Walker, Ward, Wilson, Watley.
Somebody is Senator Ward's proxy. By a vote of 39 ayes to 0 nays and 0 abstentions, this bill has now passed. Is there a motion to return to the second reading uncontested calendar for the review of SBL 188? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are continuing the call of the uncontested legislation. The clerk will now read. It's written down under 153. Sorry, David.
SBL 117-188, sponsored by Senator Marco Puzia, recommendation to improve access to professional certification resources and exam support for students in the Molinari College of Engineering and Computing.
Senator Wakapusia, you're recognized.
Hi guys, sorry. Basically, I don't know. I was looking at the committee minutes. I think you guys looked at it pretty well. I talked to my professor today. There's actually a pilot program that they are doing for the virtual labs. So I've been seeing those, and so I also want to go back on this legislation to amend it so it can just specifically be focused on certification vouchers and discounts. So that way we can have focused on just pretty much paying for these students for whatever certification they would desire. PMP, CompTIA, CCNA. I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields his time to questions. Senator Jacobson.
I am interested in ending it, please.
Senator Jacobson.
Sure.
There's been a motion to carry over SBL 117-188. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed. The ayes have it. The bill or the piece is carried over for a period of 1 week.
Thank you.
Continuing on with the call of the uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read. Hearing none, we're now on the call of the contested legislation again. The clerk will now read.
SBL 117-185, sponsored by Senator Tim George and Gavin Primus, a recommendation to establish a student-run EMS service on campus.
The senators are recognized.
Hi, everyone. Sorry you were here last week, but I just wanted to talk about some of the pieces of points of legislation, some actual research I looked at. So basically the point of it is the fact that Columbia is a very big city, and there's a lot of people in its further work. But there's a lot of people that our EMS service needs to cover, and we intend to believe that having a student-run campus-based EMS service will help improve response time and provide care to the students in need. These types of programs aren't new. They've been in for mid-sized colleges such as Hampton University and Emory University for 30 and 50 years. And they're more recently popping up in larger schools such as Texas A&M, University of Tennessee Knoxville, UNC Charlotte, UVA, and the list goes on. So this isn't a new thing, and I think that this is a good change for our campus, and they would be a great resource for our students. Yeah, and again, my time to questions.
The senator yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Senator Boswell.
Well, that's something that we're working on right now. I think Tim is in contact with USCPD, but I know that, I mean, if this is happening in other schools, and I know that sometimes, such as UC, University of Tennessee, there'll be police escorts with the EMS people, or they'll just respond on their own. It's either way. We just have to see what our police thinks is appropriate.
Chairperson Koviak.
I think that really depends on what resources are allocated.
Any other questions? Senator Sheridan.
It's really both. It's like a mutual thing. So our students can get more experience, the people who are going into healthcare, and also the students who are in need can have a quicker response time.
I'll also share on behalf of Senator George, like he is an EMT or like an EMS and like in his hometown. So like he was already certified to be doing things like that. He just spoke to me about the idea as well. Senator Lewis.
Oh, so I think the Health and Safety Committee believed that it would have been more beneficial for students to have 24-hour access to care, which I totally get. That would definitely be ideal. We just thought that we would have trouble staffing during those hours, but it is a recommendation, so obviously that is the ideal case. I agree with this amendment.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. We will now, yay! We will now move to a period debate on this legislation. Does any senator wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we will now move to a roll call vote on this legislation. The clerk will call the roll.
Baldinger, Bartlett, Venegas, Boswell, Koviak, Cumby, Zapolito, Davis, DiLorenzo, Greer, Fry, Goggin, Gay, George, Gopel, Hunter, Jacobson, Keenan, Lewis, Luxury, Middleton, Monica, Moore, Wakaputhia, Primus, Ryan, Sams, Sanders, Santiago Cedillo, Sheridan, Zeitler, Spurgeon, Tapia, Talaka, Torres, Violette, Walker, Ward, Wilson, Watley.
By a vote of 36 ayes, 2 nays, and 2 abstentions, this recommendation has passed. Good job. All right. Continuing on with the call of the contested legislation, the clerk will now read. Hearing none, we are now in line for a period of open discussion. Any senator wish to bring a matter of attention to the body? Seeing none, we are now in line for a period of announcements. Are there any announcements from the floor? Senator, oh my gosh, why did I forget your name? Hunter. You're holding George in my defense. That hurt me up.
I'll make it very quick, but as I said last week, dance marathon's happening. I was about to say, we've got 2 great people over here who have helped out mainly. I'm just the one dancing up on stage, just having a fun time, but please pop out. Any support is amazing, whether you're just watching, donating, joining as a hero or just cheering on from the crowd. We really appreciate it. So that's Saturday, and it's the entire day. So I don't want to hear a thing if I couldn't make it. Awesome. So I yield my time to questions if anybody's got them.
Any questions?
Awesome. Please
Steve?
be there.
None. Thank you. We are still in line for a period of announcements. Does any senator wish to make an announcement? Okay, seeing none, I have a quick announcement. So once again, I know I keep repeating the dates over and over. Please do not forget. Tomorrow's next week is like the second to last session, the beginning of the last legislative cycle. Please make sure you turn things in at 12 p.m. on Sunday. Thank you everybody for being really patient with me with clinicals and stuff like that. I'm sorry if I haven't been as responsive as usual, but obviously I've been having like 14.5-hour days twice a week, alongside this and my job. So thank you for everybody being patient with me. Also, just like a small little plug, I kind of went over this earlier, but you do need to be filing for election or as a writing candidate if you would like to be in Senate again next year. I'm going to be super honest, surprisingly, because I don't understand why not everybody in the entire world would want to be a student senator. We're lacking on student Senate candidates. So encourage your friends, tell them that Senate is fine. You're more than welcome to file for Senate, and if you have something next semester, that's a next semester problem, but Senate will still be meeting through the end of the spring semester. There's nothing wrong with being a write-in. Fun fact, I was a write-in, and I won with 4 votes my freshman year, and here I am today. So tell your friends to be write-ins. Just make sure they know that if they do that, their name needs to be written like completely 100% correctly. If they have a typo, if they only do 1 T instead of 2 for Violette, their vote's not going to count for that person. So just make sure they know. Other than that, just another friendly elections reminder that like the people that are doing elections right now, like we're all one student government. We're all going to end up in the same organization next year. Please make sure that you're being kind. Please make sure that you're not talking about elections during Senate, during committee meetings, in the LSC, not to be creepy, but as I tell you guys over and over again, I'm going to find out, and then it makes it really awkward conversation. So just please make sure that you're being super cautious in that aspect. But with that, I yield my time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing no further announcements, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Without objection, the Senate will now stand adjourned until Wednesday, February 25th, 2025.